Growing up in an Asian community in the Boston area, you always hear about that one school. You know the one. So, going through middle school and high school, I only ever had that one school in mind. But in the spring of my junior year, I had to come up with a list of colleges to apply to. I told my college counselor about what my goals were, and she asked me, "So, what about your other schools?" To which I, of course, replied, "There are other schools." Hi there, welcome to Drick's room. My name is Drick. It's still pretty early in the college application season and many of you haven't gotten too far in yet. And that's totally okay. That's what I'm here for. So today I thought I'd start toward the very beginning of the college application journey and talk about how to build a list of colleges you might want to apply to. This list can, of course, change over time as your interests change, but having a preliminary list can be good to see where you're at. As a little bit of background on myself, back when I was applying to colleges, I applied to a total of 26 schools. I'll put up my schools on the screen now. Obviously, this is a pretty large number of schools to apply to. Looking back on the whole process, 26 schools was definitely way more than I needed, and it was a lot of stress that I could have done without. Some of the schools I applied to were ones that I wasn't even really that interested in. I kinda just applied for the sake of applying. Just like everyone else will tell you, you probably shouldn't apply to this many schools. With that being said though, even if I do say that, there'll still be many of you who want to apply to a bunch of schools regardless. I know this because plenty of people told me not to apply to so many schools, but I still did anyway, and I'm sure a lot of you will do the same. So I'd like to talk about how I went about crafting my list of colleges and share some advice I have that can help you all in building your own. Whether you're starting with a blank slate or already have a few schools in mind, there are a number of different factors you have to consider when choosing which colleges you want to apply to. The weight of each factor is going to vary from person to person, of course, because everyone places importance on things differently. So keep that in mind as I talk about these different factors, because the things that were important to me when I was applying may not be as important for you, or they may be even more important. It's really a matter of preference and what you as an individual look for in a school. Alright, so first up we have prestige, name value, ranking, clout, whatever you want to call it. I know a lot of people tend not to focus on prestige as one of the reasons why they'd apply to a school, maybe because it can sound like a shallow reason for applying, but I would be lying if I said that I didn't consider the name value and ranking of certain schools when I added them to my list. Clout is just a social construct, but we do live in a society. Whether we like it or not, the school you attend can have a significant impact on the internships you can get, the jobs you can get, the connections you can get. Some companies and even some entire sectors will only take in people who went to certain schools or have certain connections that one could obtain by having went to certain schools. I do hope to do well in life and have a job that I can be happy with. I'm not 100% set on what career I'd like to pursue, so attending a school where I can have the opportunity to pursue a lot of different things at a high level will certainly be of help. And oftentimes it's the higher ranking, more prestigious schools where those kinds of resources and opportunities are most abundant. However, I do want to be clear that I didn't add schools to my list or choose the school I'll be attending solely for the sake of being able to say that I attend that school. If that were the case, I would have chosen my college list by going onto the US News and World Report rankings and choosing the top 20 schools on that list. And then I would have chosen to attend the school that ranked highest on that list, which is not what I did for the most part. You know, I am super happy and proud to be attending Stanford. But I didn't choose that school solely because I wanted that Stanford name on my resume. I don't want the whole idea of being a Stanford University student to encompass my whole personality, because that kind of clout is superficial and short-lived. There are so many things about Stanford that make me excited to start school, and that name value, honestly, isn't even at the top of the list. As Hikigaya Hachiman once said, I want something genuine. Next, we have location. You know what they say, location, location, location. And this is also true for college. Again, what you're going to be looking for is going to vary a lot by person. What part of the country you want to be in, whether you want a more urban or more rural campus, how close to home you want to be, etc. For me, every school that I applied to, with the exception of Stanford, is in the northeast region of the United States, and probably half of them are contained within Massachusetts. I wasn't really too keen on moving down south or to the Midwest, which took out a lot of schools like UChicago, Vanderbilt, Duke, Rice. I wasn't too concerned about schools being urban versus rural because I imagined I would be fine if I only got into one type of school or the other. My ideal area would be in a medium to large size city, but I wouldn't be too upset with a more rural or a more urban campus setting. You may really like urban settings like New York or LA, or you may really like less populated areas like Hanover or Ithaca. Most people I know didn't really care too much about location, but I do know that it is important for some people. Also, for the most part, I wanted to stay as close to home as possible for college, so in the Northeast region, which is part of the reason why I applied to almost exclusively schools in the region. Looking back almost a year later, it's pretty funny how things turn out. Something else that's really important to consider is financial aid and how much you'll be paying to attend a certain school. Obviously, it would be ideal to not have to spend any money to attend college in the United States. Maybe someday. But the next best thing is to attend college for as little as possible. The cost of attending college can definitely be offset by scholarships and such, but you still want to keep in mind how much you'll be paying for school. Fortunately, I'm in a position where the cost of attending college for my school doesn't pose a significant burden on my family. But regardless, I still wouldn't want to be paying a lot of money for school. And this ties back to my previous point about prestige, because some of the most prestigious schools in the country, like Stanford and the Ivy League, have large endowments, which means that they're able to give more financial aid to their students. Some people have asked me why I didn't apply to any of the UC schools, and honestly, it's solely because I would have gotten very little money from them as an out-of-state student. I won't go down into the specific numbers because it's going to vary from person to person, but I'll be paying less to attend Stanford than I would be at any of the state schools I got into. And that's even with me being an in-state student. Since public schools tend to be bigger than private schools and have smaller endowments, the average cost of tuition tends to be higher. I have nothing against public schools and state schools, of course. I think they can be great options, but in my case, they ended up being some of my more expensive options. Another thing you'll want to look at are the school's course offerings, special programs, etc. When I was applying to schools, I looked for schools that had offerings in linguistics, international relations, that type of stuff. Some of my schools were especially known for having really strong linguistics programs and even had special programs in them, which really appealed to me. At the same time though, I wasn't 100% sure that I would still want to study the same thing 2 or 3 years later. So I also wanted to make sure that the schools I applied to had a wide range of subjects to peruse. You may also want to look at the majors and minors offered and if you can double major. You can also look at honors colleges if you're interested in them, 4+1 programs, co-terminal programs, study abroad, research opportunities, and any other fun things that would make you excited to attend a school, because Every school is gonna have something unique. Overall, you want to make sure that the schools on your list all pass the vibe check. Could you see yourself attending that school? Would that school set you up for success and help you accomplish your goals? Would you be happy attending that school? These are the kinds of questions you want to be asking yourself when you're looking at different schools. If a school doesn't pass your vibe check, then do you really want to apply there? These are some of the biggest factors that influenced my list, but there are many other things to keep in mind, like the size of a school, activities that students can participate in, the party scene, etc. These are some things that didn't really play a role for me when I was deciding on schools, but everyone has different wants. Some people want to attend really big party schools, and that's great for them. But that's just not for me. It's not like I'm gonna have any friends in college anyways, so... And as you add and subtract schools from your list, once you have finalized your list, or think you've finalized your list, look it over and ask yourself if your list of colleges is balanced. Again, you definitely don't want to apply to 26 schools like I did, because that was a very bad decision on my part. It was really time consuming and the application fees really added up. Might I suggest 25 schools? Or maybe 24? Jokes aside, applying to more schools than necessary really takes a toll on you. The last 3 weeks of 2019 were a really rough time for me because I had so many applications to fill out. Mostly because I put off all my applications until the last possible minute, but that's besides the point. If you can, save yourself from any more stress than needed. When you're working on so many applications, you're going to be spreading yourself thin. I will admit that some of my applications weren't as good as they could have been if I had spent more time on them, and the results show. Why did I feel the need to apply to so many schools? I truly don't know. And even after the semester-long chaos of applying to so many schools, I had the audacity to think, maybe I should apply to some more schools. Please don't make the same mistake I did. Realistically, I would say that around 15 schools is a decent number. If you really want to push it, maybe you could do 20 if you like having a bad time. I've heard some people talk about organizing your schools into a pyramid where you have a good number of safeties at the bottom, some targets in the middle, and maybe a few reaches at the top. And honestly, actually before I say this, I am not a college counselor, admissions officer, or any other person qualified to give you advice on this matter. Just keep that in mind and take this next bit with a grain of salt. I think it would be fine to do like an upside down pyramid. At the bottom you have a few safeties, in the middle you still have some targets, and at the top you have a good number of reaches. I know a lot of people are only interested in top tier schools, but it's a good idea to have some safeties and targets just in case things don't go as planned. The college application process is so unsure and unpredictable. You never really know what's going to happen, so try to keep your options open. Once again, everything I've said comes from my own experience. You don't need to follow everything I did step by step, and honestly, you shouldn't. You know yourself the best, so do what's best for you. After all, I'm not even an admissions officer, so... Lastly, perhaps the most important piece of advice I could give you all is to not overdo it. Chances are you're going to be working harder than you've ever worked before. This also means that you're going to be really stressed for the next few months, maybe even more stressed than you've ever been before. What I did a lot during this process, and what I advise you all to do as well, is to frequently perform some vibe checks. As I said in my previous video, college is what you make of it. This is gonna be a chaotic time for you, but I believe in you. Good luck. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful, and if you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!